water trick you can do right now to target this toxin and stop storing fat. The truth? Leptin resistance can be addressed. Your belly fat, arm fat, hip fat, and thigh fat is reversible. It is not a life sentence. You see, after speaking to Jonah, I kept wondering, if dieting and exercise had done nothing and never would do anything to help Grace's overweight body, then what could? If the top 2 things that doctors and the entire weight loss industry had told us would help did nothing for her belly fat or tackle its root cause, leptin resistance, then what would? Sadly, Jonah didn't have the answer, and I was close to giving up. That's when I discovered something that chilled me to the bone. I'm embarrassed to share this with you, but I feel I have to. Using Grace's laptop one night, I stumbled on some of her Google searches. Best ways to kill yourself, said one query. Painless suicide, said another. I had no idea Grace was feeling that low. I was desperate to help her, but didn't know how. The future looked bleak. But that very night, I received a phone call that would change everything. Not that I knew it at the time. I've always believed in God and prayed to Him practically every night for weeks, asking Him to help Grace. And I firmly believe that what happened next is proof that He was listening. The call came from my boss. I've been asked to lead an educational project in Malaysia. In 2016, they suffered nearly 3,000 forest and bushfires and were looking to learn more about how we manage our forest fires in the U.S. They needed an experienced man as a project supervisor, and with my experience, I was one of the top candidates. Given Grace's condition and state of mind, the timing couldn't have been worse, or so I thought. But unable to do anything about it, I set off for Malaysia, leaving Grace's sister in charge of her safety. I hated leaving her, but as it turned out, the men I would meet on that job would provide the answer to my prayers. And in the strangest of ways, right after my grueling 42 hours of traveling, I'm introduced to the firefighters I would be training, a group of 22 men from all over Malaysia. Among them was Ashraf Hadi and 5 other guys who were from a tiny Malaysian island called Langkawi. As the weeks went on, I came to realize these 6 guys, who were all in their mid-50s, didn't have an ounce of fat on them. They were slim, healthy, and full of energy. Every dinner we spent together, I would notice they would eat their plate of food, but then never eat again for the rest of the day. No second portions, no desserts, no snacks, even with the delicious plates of cakes, fried food, and candy bars that were available. Back home, I would never have seen it. We love our food and we keep eating and eating even after dinner. So that night, I took Ashraf to one side and I asked him, how do you have the willpower to not eat all this amazing food? I told him all about my wife's condition, her suicidal thoughts, and that I had nowhere else to turn. If you know anything that can help her, please tell me. I pleaded. Ashraf smiled, patted me on the shoulder, and told me to wait where I was. A few minutes later, he returned with a notepad and pencil and began to scribble down what looked like a recipe, complete with a list of strange plants and herbs, most of which I've never ever heard of. What's this? I asked him, looking down the list. The secret you've been searching for, he said, with a glint in his eyes. Our health is all down to these ingredients, he continued mysteriously. Obesity simply doesn't exist on our island. This recipe has been in my family for generations, he said. Eat these ingredients and your wife will be fine. With that, Ashraf stood up, gave me a knowing smile, and got back to work. Only then did I remember that Ashraf and his friends had this small leather bag containing a powdered mix of plants and that they would take 1 spoonful every day. I had asked to try it, but they said it was more valuable than gold and politely refused. The minute I returned home to